Da, 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 da. Hey, oh, I guess we're going to be doing some Transformers and Ghostbusters talk with Erik Burnham tonight, the writer from the Ghostbusters mini-series at IDW. But I'm the only person here right now. Okay, let's do the intro.
You are, in fact, watching The Dorkening.
You're watching The Dorkening. Stay tuned.
For all the geek news everywhere. Dorkening.
And this is The Dorkening. Trust me, I'm smarter than these guys.
Because The Dorkening is the best and most educational entertainment and information source that the Trauma team knows of. It's the best. The Dorkening.
All right, and that's the intro to the show that you're watching and we're on, which would be Smash Pages Comic Book Club.
We
And
did
I'm
it.
decidedly not Leo or Rich,
Whoa!
like low school.
Shenanigans.
Indeed, this is the most Skeleton Crew splash pages. This is I would say Skeleton Crew, but I'm fairly certain that's a Stephen King title. I'm not trying to get sued. So,
I mean, it's been around for a long time. I used to work the Skeleton Crew, and I don't think that anybody at the
No.
coding treatment plant that I worked at was concerned about copyright infringement on Stephen King.
you never know.
But were they on a podcast that was listened to by like 3 people?
I don't know, man. I don't really pay attention to the things that
Three
people I
people.
work with do.
Well, thank you, the Power Brandon, for
Yes.
for being both the Fleo and the Fritch, the fake Rich. I don't know. Point of being
Oh,
is
you have to do both? Oh, man.
he's a hell of a guy. So he's
Hey, listen, ain't nobody like me but me.
exactly.
Those are real words.
Indeed. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We've got a great show planned for you. Got a lot of news. We've got a lot of personality, and God willing, we'll get to see our guest, Mr. Erik Burnham, the writer extraordinaire for IDW, who wrote all three of the things that we're going to discuss tonight. Very pumped, very excited. And gentlemen, how are you guys doing?
I'm pretty fantastic. Having a wonderful Tuesday. I got to go out into the sun and do some yard work today, and now I get to hang out with you guys. So
Great.
Doesn't get better than this.
Good, yeah, I know. And you guys didn't get to do a lot of news last week because it was
we didn't
Mark,
do anything.
Yeah, it was the Mark A. Nelson show featuring Splash Pages, which
sure was.
Which is again, hey, not. I was like, wow, well, that's new. So that was
the man had stories. He could talk, and at the 2-hour mark, I was trying sort of to be like, we're kind of running long, and he's like, no, ask more questions. So I was like, all right, fine then.
That's like that time me and Brandon and Leo were at the JJ Cohen interview, like I think like a year or so ago, and that just that was like 3 hours, and more people just kept coming on. I was just like, Doc, I don't think StreamYard can handle it anymore. Like,
yeah, your reaction is better than mine because I was like, I was so tired, I was ready to go full on boss and be like, all right, wrap it up, boys. This guy could talk a starving dog off a fucking meat wagon.
I was like, it was fun, but I was just like, oh my gosh. And I said that to Leo. I was like, you and that time we interviewed Jerry Reese. So the two of the longest, greatest interviews of my life, and let's keep it that way. So, all right. Since we didn't get to do any news last week, Jeremy, Brandon, if you wanted to go over anything, I have a bunch that I want to kind of get through. Not too quickly.
This was my week to sit back and let you and Rich be the superstars that you are, and Rich took the night off, and now I feel like Erik's not going to be here, and I'm like, oh man.
We got to have the faith, man.
All my lack of doing anything is gonna not pay off.
I'm the fucking monkey behind the keyboard tonight, so I'm just here to fucking dance like the little organ grinder monkey that we're all accustomed to seeing.
What?
I didn't show up here with any kind of topic in mind. My one concern was start the fucking show on time, and
you did it.
You're doing great, man.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. I have. You know what? I'm good. You guys go ahead.
All right, Jeremy. Before I guess I'll start the news. Jeremy, did you have anything from our upcoming appearance at Terrificon? Any news there?
Tons of God, why am I losing all the words tonight? Tons of News. Yeah, there we go. Nudes. No. Well, announcements. That's what it is. Tons of announcements of different actors, artists, and stuff since 2 weeks ago. Michael Hagney, a voice actor who has done almost every voice, I think, of every Pokemon. It's kind of interesting. If you're a Pokemon fan, that's kind of cool. Javier Salters, I'm probably saying his last name wrong. He's artist on Night Thrasher, Ghost Rider, G.I. Joe. Hidden anything for you, Drew?
Yeah, he's a slightly older artist. He did a lot of Ghost Rider and stuff back in the day. Yeah. I think he's still doing stuff. I can't really say I've read anything of his off the top of my head, but the name sounds familiar.
I don't know anything recently, Joe Duffy, who's a writer and editor for Marvel and DC, she had a pretty cool run on Star Wars back in the day.
Yeah, she did.
Some AEW wrestlers, Wardlow and Ethan Page. I'm not a wrestler person, so I don't know anything about that. Bo Hampton, who's an artist for some Batman Elseworlds. I was wondering if Brandon actually covered
what was his name?
Bo Hampton. Did
Bo Hampton?
Castle of the Bat.
Oh, Castle of the Bat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's
some
been a long time since I've read
Frog
it.
of the
and-
Swamp Thing, some Moon Knight.
Okay.
Actor Steve Agee, or that sounds about right, I think, to me. He's the dude
Steve
from
Agee. Steve
Agee.
Actually, I think it's Agee. But yeah, he was on Sarah Silverman program. He
Yeah.
played Taserface in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He
Yep.
also plays John Economos in The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker.
Yeah. Look at I love having Brandon on. I don't have to do.
There's nothing on my screen, by the way.
Well,
I know.
I'll just
I love that. All
I'll
right,
just-
everybody knows Jerry Ordway. I mean, writer, artist, Batman, Superman. What hasn't he done?
Jerry, we can do this the easy way or the Ordway.
Yep.
Sean Kanan.
Keenan.
Is it Keenan?
Kanan.
Kenan.
Kanan.
Kanan.
He's the dude from Karate Kid 3 and in Cobra Kai.
Oh, yeah.
He's also going to be doing a comedy special the Saturday night of Terrific Con. So if anybody's interested in some comedy,
oh boy,
it's supposed to be the Comedy Dojo. So I'm guessing some Karate Kid jokes will be in there.
Sweep the leg.
Cal Dodd, voice actor from did Wolverine and a ton of kid shows. If you're into those, but, I mean, not that X-Men wasn't a kid show, I guess.
Was he the voice of Wolverine in the X-Men cartoon?
Yeah,
and he's actually reprising the role for the '97 X-Men as well.
Yeah,
and then
my version of Wolverine sounds like Elite needs sucrets.
No one ever said gutter trash the way Cal Dodd did for Wolverine. Like, you just knew you were scum, bub. You know? No, and it's also funny because I think he was the voice of Slappy in the Goosebump live action movie. You know, the marionette doll. You know?
Night of the Living Dummy?
Yeah, that one. I think his name
I've never read a single fucking Goosebumps or seen an episode of that show, but for some reason,
you know that.
And yet,
for some reason, I know that.
There you go. Well, you're not missing anything. It was very Canadian.
And announced today, Larry Kenny, you know, voice of Lion-O, Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, Count Chocula, millions of other of our things, and
by Jugga's beard.
Renee Jacobs, April O'Neil.
Oh.
Yeah, I know our good friend Justin Cooper, who is going to be at Terrific Con this year, is extremely excited to meet both her and Louise Simonson. He's a big X Factor guy, so he's very looking forward to that. That's
all from Terrific Con for the past 2 weeks
so far. So far. No, it's going to be a really great lineup. I have to say, I'm very excited. I can't wait to see what we can, what memories we can make, interviews we can get, and even interviews we can book ahead of time. So,
I'm real excited. It's going to be a pretty good time. Pretty much everything Drew said dittoed.
Yeah, ditto. And not the Pokemon.
No.
It's going to be a good time, I must say.
Yeah, yeah, boo. We've got some comic news for you.
Hey,
all right, for Pokemon voiceover guy, I have to say my kids were a little bit funny. They're like, hold on, he did the voices of Pokemon. I'm like, well, he's done other stuff too. And they're like, but he really sat there and he just was like, gurgle. I was like,
yeah.
And he got paid.
A fucking paying job is a paying job, kids.
Yeah, man. Listen, it works. There's one voice that she's been the Pikachu, I think, the whole time. I was you made an entire career of saying Pikachu.
Yeah, hey, listen, all right? You need someone to say Pikachu. I got to pay my light bill. Let's do this thing.
There you go. In another universe, Brandon Powers is Hollywood's main lawyer, you know, or probably the best agent they have. Excuse me.
Listen, if Chunk can become a fucking entertainment lawyer that brokers the contract for Ke Huy Quan to take over and win an Oscar, then I have a fucking shot too, right?
I believe in you, buddy. I think
That's my
anything's
story,
possible.
and I'm sticking to it.
I will see you switch that hat for the lawyery hat, and it'll be great.
I wish they would let you wear hats in court.
Yeah, you would look so stylish.
Yeah, instead I just look like every other bald-headed, bearded guy in there, which is more than you'd think.
See, the thing being is, if we could just wheel you in, and it's, hey, look, Professor X showed up, everybody.
To me, my X-Men.
Wolverine, bring me a pizza.
To me, my X-Men.
All right. So, like I said, I guess we'll just get to the comic news. There are some other things that are happening in the nerd world that we could bring up, but unfortunately, I don't know how much is really newsworthy, especially if it's ongoing. Like, for instance, the writer's strike is continuing, and even Marvel properties are feeling it. Blade has been delayed again due to the writer's strike. And no, we're not going to have the joke of someone put a stake through it, because that's just way too lowbrow vampire humor. And I believe...
I guess that movie will never see the sun.
Thank you, Brandon. That was wonderful. There's conflicting opinions on whether I believe that it also will affect Daredevil Born Again. I read something that said it will. Jeremy read something that says it won't.
I saw
It's
something
a 50-50.
D'Onofrio was saying that they were still going through because the scripts were already written.
Right.
So they were going to film what they could.
You know, but it's very exciting still because we're essentially getting what some people gleefully call Daredevil season 4. Although Disney is like, no, it's a season 1. We're like, no, we know. We have a count. Not 1. Add 3 to that.
No, I'm going to go with Disney on this one because they own the property and they're the ones resetting the story. So, yeah, season 1.
All right, thanks, Brandon. So I have a bunch of news that's for Marvel and DC. A lot of it is related to Free Comic Book Day, which as it just passed. So like I said, some of it I have to say, I just glossed over news-wise because, to be quite honest, I didn't care. And then I figured, if I don't care, then why am I going to report it to you? Which, is that good journalism? I don't know anymore. I'm just going to keep sipping water out of this fancy cup just so you can see the logo.
Me
All right,
too.
cool. Yeah. Product endorsement, everybody. What are we saying?
Mine just says, notice me, senpai. Notice me.
Mine just says, can you guess what I'm a
is that
fan of?
that dude that does the crazy interviews and stuff?
Yes, it is. Here, I'll show you. It is.
I love. I've seen 2 or 3 of his interviews.
Onyx the Fortuitous.
I think they're hilarious.
Yeah.
He's
Notice me,
hilarious.
senpai. Notice me.
And that is the deal. The day Brandon got a deal. So
this was a gift from my good friend Alex DiVincenzo over at BrokeHorrorFan.com.
How lovely. So, Brandon, if you don't mind, we'll start with the X-Men story, which was 3 and 1.
Is that the first?
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you, these are only numbered. There's no.
You know what? We're playing news. There you go. I was going to say we're going to play news roulette, but so all these stories here were interconnected in a way. So essentially, the first story begins with Captain Krakoa, which is a superhero identity used by Cyclops to disguise the fact that mutants can now be resurrected. Essentially, in this story, you see somebody whose identity, of course, isn't revealed, infiltrating Krakoa on the night of the Hellfire Gala, stealing the costume. It's hinted at that this person is known to the X-Men enough that Destiny sends the plan, and her and Mystique left the gala. Cyclops, of course, arrives to stop the intruder. He underestimates him and is thrown to his death. Okay.
That's fun.
Yes. So now this person has the Krakoa costume, allowing him to impersonate who is essentially the public face of the X-Men. So he makes a scene. He launches a terrorist attack against politicians that I believe debating the mutant problem at the gala. creating the illusion that Krakoa is now hostile to the United States. So you have Captain America.
They go after Senator Kelly.
Yep. I think Kelly was like, no, I'm good. So you have Captain America, who sat this thing out. He's back in the action. He's attacked. He's saved by Rogue. Essentially, this is going to be implied that this is going to restart the Avengers Unity Squad, which some may remember were the Uncanny Avengers team in Rick Morender's run of the Avengers, like way back in 2014. Way back. And then we're also going to see how Deadpool factors into
almost
this.
10 years. Holy shit.
I know. So his daughter, we get to see a cameo from his daughter Ellie, who's, we remember, his daughter, who's being raised by his former friend, Shield agent Emily Preston. She gets targeted by some of those new Stark Tech Sentinels. So essentially, you get the idea that because of Captain Krakoa's fake attack, now the Sentinels are given free reign to start rounding up rogue mutants. Thus, a scenario we've seen probably a dozen times with the X-Men, because when they're Sentinels, X-Men will be there to fuck them up. So that's the first piece of news. The second one, which I'm very excited about, I'm sure me and Brandon are. Well, I don't know about Brandon. Maybe he's like partially excited. In Free Comic Day Spider-Man Venom, there is a setup for Jonathan Hickman and Brian Hitch's Ultimate Invasion. We've talked about this a bunch. I'm super pumped by this, being that this is a return to the Ultimate Universe, which was supposedly destroyed in 2015 and has recently been making a comeback, as seen by its return in Bendis and Pichelli and some of Marquez's Spider-Man 2. We saw that it indeed is still there. And at the end of Venom run, Donny Cates' Venom run, we saw the Maker, aka Evil Reed Richards, of the Ultimate Universe, returning to the Ultimate Universe once again. So could see there. So in this short page that we saw, which is unlettered, we see Reed Richards, great cover there of Reed, Evil Reed, basically facing the Illuminati, drawn by Brian Hitch. Very excited there. We see Reed approaching Miles in the middle of the night, essentially given the idea that he's regained his memories of their homeworld and wants to return, and he wants Miles to go with him. So Hitch, being the artist from the original Ultimate series with Mark Millar and Jonathan Hickman, who wrote the Ultimates during the kind of the end era of the Ultimates, he said, we thought the very idea of the Ultimate Comics needed to be inverted from what the original universe was. We wanted this to be something that could really exist only in the comic space, a new way of thinking about enjoying a new version of the Ultimate Universe. I'm pretty happy to say that it feels like we've accomplished those things, and we're very excited for everyone to get to read it. Like I said, it's a 4-part series. I'm personally very excited. I love seeing the Ultimate Universe back, and it'll be interesting to see what they revisit, what they take it from the new place. I don't know. Brandon is a fellow Ultimate fan. What do you think?
For me, it's a little bit of
low hanging fruit.
Once bitten, twice shy.
That's fair.
You know, I really enjoyed the Ultimate stuff up until a certain point, and
verbatim. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, even right before Ultimatum, like the cracks started to show.
Yeah.
And Ultimatum was definitely
the rock bottom.
I mean, I'm trying to be diplomatic, but it was a fucking shit show. It was just the Spanish would refer to it as El Terrible, and it was not a good time to be a fan of Ultimate Comics, and I think it's rather telling that not too long thereafter, that entire line just went altogether.
And it's sad because there were a lot of great stories that happened after Ultimatum, but it was never able to get back to that previous high it once enjoyed, to the point where it was outselling the mainstream Marvel books. You know?
I think part of it too is unfortunately with how the Ultimate comic line was set up. It's great to say like, hey, we're starting at zero, and we're gonna just tell these stories bare bones and let them be what they are in their essence, their core, and that's fine, except for when you get to like issue 40. Because now you are starting to buckle under the weight of everything that's come before it, which was the issue, no pun intended, you were trying to avoid to begin with by restarting the series with these newer, updated versions of the characters. So, it kind of ends up becoming like, Mr. Pibb or Dr. Pepper. Which flavor do you really like more? It's essentially the same fucking thing.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. I mean, I'm still very optimistic about it. Time will tell. But moving on to the next thing, in the same book, no, the one we had before. Nope.
What are you talking about, dude? These are all I'm going in order.
No, I know. I'm just saying that one. These they're all the same book. Sorry, Brendan. I should have said that. So with that. There's another story that ties into now Zeb Wells' extremely controversial Amazing Spider-Man series, where we see Spidey dealing with an escaped gorilla in the streets of New York using his new Norman Osborn designed suit. Everybody kind of gets mad at Peter because they don't like this idea of a superhero beating up an animal. It appears that Craven is the one who set the whole thing up. He does this to steal a sample of Spidey's spider bombs, which I'm what? Spider bombs. I'm sorry.
Jesus,
there's a whole lot of what in there.
Oh no.
Is that a spider glider that he's on?
Yeah, and then he has this bringing to his benefactor, who is none other than Doc Ock, who's back in his old body, basically erasing all the events that happened in Superior Spider-Man. So Ock's back, and he, of course, is set to side on Spider-Man. But the last story in there, which actually is kind of cool, you see the return of an obscure Golden Age character called Flexo. Now, Flexo was a remote-controlled robot constructed from live rubber. I kid you not. But as the story reveals, Flexo's inventors built him around an alien symbiote that they found from a fallen meteorite, which makes Flexo Marvel's oldest symbiote character, kind of like how Namor was Marvel's first mutant. So we also see that Flexo will soon become a member of the Venom, who's Dylan Brock, Eddie Brock's son, Rogues Gallery. So I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. So Flexo, everybody. I don't know what more to say to that. Yeah. So one second, I got it.
Linguo dead? Everyone. Linguo is dead.
Indeed. So next, following that is we're coming up on 35 years celebrating the creation of Venom. So we know the summer of symbiotes is underway. And it is going to start with this book, Extreme Venomverse, which is a series that's going to take us essentially throughout the Venom multiverse. So you're going to have 3 stories here. The first one you're going to have is a universe where it wasn't Peter Parker, but it was Eddie Brock as Spider-Man. That's by Ryan North and Paolo Sicchierida. And then you have Mirka Andolfo is going to be a new side of the Brock family that you never see. And on top of it, this is all from Marvel, everybody, so I can't make this up. And then from writer-artist Leonardo Romero, we're going to reimagine Venom as a samurai. So that's the bladed one there. Also with that dope cover there by superstar Lionel Yu. This comes out tomorrow. So, hey, if you like Venom, check it out. Seems cool.
No. No more origin. It's the same thing.
I mean, I don't know what. I mean, I have an idea of what Marvel is trying to elicit with the premise of that story and that cover, but for me, I don't know what you call the opposite of an erection, but that's what it gives me, because I really
other than trying to sell action figures, I don't understand.
The answer is popcorn shrimp.
Yeah, I just
Mm.
I personally like
It was
if
cold.
you I'm not like the biggest Spider-Man guy. I do
Mhm.
appreciate the character.
Right.
I've always gotten a kick out of the fact that he's basically Woody Allen with superpowers. Uh, that's really what it is. It's like if Larry David got bitten by a radioactive spider in the 60s, like that would be Spider-Man. But like Venom is a character for me. I just don't get it. I really don't. I
I-
never have. I never will.
I
Like
I-
liked
I
it in
see
the 90s.
I see
I
like the disparate portions of it where it's like, oh, alien costume and like looks
Mhm.
badass and big and muscular and all snarly.
Right.
But I do not care about Venom at all.
I,
You
I,
know,
for me,
not in this day and age. I definitely don't.
for me, it always depended who was in the suit. Like me, I did not care. Like Eddie Brock was fine, but when they like, I was like, oh, the Scorpion was Venom. I was like, oh, fuck this. This is ridiculous. Like his name is Mac Gargan. It's not Mac Gargan, the Venorpian, as Dan Slott's run called him. And then I liked Flash Thompson, but again, some of that is always about who writes it. Like I was a big fan of Rick Morender, so I loved his Marvel stuff and what he did with Agent Venom. I thought was cool. But then after a while, it just like goes back to type. Like I started reading Donny Cates's run on Venom, and I gotta be honest, I was like, okay, I know everyone talks about this, like it's great. I'm kind of bored. Like,
Yeah, I sold mine as soon as they actually reached some value. I was like, oh, I have those. Let me get rid of those. I don't
right.
need them.
So Brandon, I kind of agree with you. Like for me, it's always about the story, and but for me, the second they're like, oh, there's a Venom verse, I was like, well, yeah, but then I'm like, but then they explain this whole thing. I'm like, okay, I mean, sure, if you're a fan and you want to buy it, that's fine. I'm good. I'm saving my
let me put it this way.
Mhm.
I don't have any deep abiding allegiance to any particular list of Spider-Man rogues or anything like that.
Mhm.
But when it does come to Spider-Man's villains, I do think that Venom is someone who, as a villain initially, made a lot of sense. It worked out really well.
Right.
But then because of his popularity,
Get
they started
oversaturated.
playing with the idea that he was an anti-hero and
Mhm.
all this, and that's whatever. When you start looking at the overall zeitgeist, popular culture through and through, not just comic books, but reaching out into other forms of media,
Mhm.
directly, Venom is responsible for the end of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Straight up.
There you go. Hard to
And
argue.
if people didn't get such a stupid fucking nerd boner over Venom, no matter what he's doing when he appears, then that never would have happened.
Yeah, we would have had more. We would have probably had other Sam Raimi movies. Yeah, you're right.
If you watch Spider-Man 3, you can tell that he really wanted Sandman and Harry to be like the villains of that movie.
Oh yeah.
There's a beautiful sequence when Sandman is first like pulling himself together after his accident,
Yeah.
and he's trying to form himself, and he's kind of obviously losing a sense of who he is, but he finds the locket with his kid's picture in it, his daughter's picture, and
And
it makes him remember. And it's something that when I saw it, I found to be very reminiscent of like the Universal monsters. There was
yeah,
something they were scary, and they were inhuman, but there was still some
flicker of
part or
humanity.
piece of them, a flicker of humanity. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what we were seeing at play in that scene by
Yeah.
Sam Raimi. It was clearly an homage and a harkening back to that. And there is nothing else for the rest of that movie that comes fucking close to
Mhm.
that feeling. And that's because everything up to that point is truly genuine.
Yeah.
And past that, it's we want you to spend as much money as possible on all the stupid Venom merchandise that we're going to make based off of this.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
well, if you decide you're going to spend that money, kids, go do it. We won't. And speaking of Sam Raimi, thank you, Brandon, for someone who didn't do much. You're setting up all these stories really well, so thank you. Doctor Strange and Clea are together again in Jed MacKay and Pascal Ferry's new run of Doctor Strange. We already know that they're a great duo, but something more powerful is being the punch, eliminating Doctor Strange's foes before they do. So essentially, you're going to have them, of course, in their quest to solve the magical mystery. The answer to discover will shock them and readers alike. Using all the mystical might at her disposal, Clea releases her greatest spells, and that's artist Derek Chu's cover, beautiful, for Doctor Strange 4, but is it good enough? And we're also going to see, which I think actually is even a little cooler than the cover, we're going to see Doctor Strange's famous partner in crime, slash friend, slash former sidekick, Wong, who has his own plan for dealing with the threat by reforming S.H.I.E.L.D.'s covert mystical organization, WAND. So, personally, I'm kind of excited about that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Is that the next photo here? I don't know.
No.
Okay.
No. The next one is actually something for that's going to be happening in a few weeks. Pride Month is rapidly approaching, so Marvel released all of their covers for this year's Pride variant covers. So artists Lucas Wernick and David Telasaki, Telasky, thank you. I'm sorry, I misspelled that. So you have there's 6 covers. Wernick said that he basically kind of imagined that these characters are just having fun. They're dancing their night away. I believe he said, my idea was to put the characters in a ballroom setting, living the best moments of their lives to remind ourselves to do the same. We're beautiful the way we are, and we deserve to shine and be happy. So,
Captain Game Erica, I love it.
Yeah. So
I'm waiting for the comment section.
Yeah, you have Rachel. The first image was Rachel Summers. The next one was Escapade, who was a mutant hero from last year's Marvel Voices Pride. The next two were, you had Wolverine's son, Dakin, or Dakin. No, Dakin. Dakin.
I think it's Dakin. Yeah, I think it's Dakin.
Yeah. You have, next one is Aaron Fisher. He's aka Captain America of the Railways. The one after that is Web Weaver, who is described as the most fabulous Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse. And of course, Black Cat. These will be all going out sometime in June. So, hey, if you want, check them out. I mean, personally, I think the Black Cat one looks stupendous. They all look pretty great overall. But hey, listen, whatever works. But okay, and to the next one. Switching over now to DC. Also in Free Comic Book Day, DC essentially introduced their next villain for their next upcoming event, Night Terrors. Written by Joshua Williamson, penciled by Chris Bacalo and Howard Porter, inked by Bacalo, Porter, Jamie Mendoza, and Danny Miki, colored by, so I don't even need to go into all the details. This issue you see here sees Damian Wayne / Robin trapped in a dream that seems okay at first and then becomes a nightmare as Damian sees visions of the Flash, Batman, and more, as seen, drawn by the peculiarly odd, wonderfully notable style of Chris Bacalo, who some of you remember his Madcaps style, as I do, in Jason Aaron's run on Doctor Strange, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and also his work on the X-Men and other things. Just at the end, you see Robin believing that it's only just a dream, which the new villain, I believe his name is Insomnia. Yes, Insomnia.
Really broke the source on that one, guys.
Yeah,
it's like Masters
what can we
of the
pick?
Universe.
Insomnia. Doesn't that mean can't sleep? Perfect.
Yeah, so he'll get people when they're sleeping.
Exactly. So this is a horror-based event that's going to be going through July and August this year. So you're going to have Williamson, Porter, and Gilliam March. You're going to see the entire DC universe plunge into darkness as heroes and villains alike are forced to confront their worst fears in a horrific nightmare realm. Essentially, Williamson, who's a big fan of horror comics, says it's been a blast. It's showcasing essentially all the horror sides of our heroes and villains. You're going to see this kick off on July 4th with the Night Terror's First Blood, which is by Williamson and Porter. Then it's going to be a 4-issue Night Terror series by Williamson, Giuseppe Camicoli, who did work most notably on Dan Slott's run of Spider-Man and Superior Spider-Man, Stefano Nessi and Casper Winegard. You're going to see also a 2-issue miniseries with a few other DC characters. So, personally, I like that this idea that horror comics are becoming a little bit more mainstream. But of course, as with a good horror movie, it's always the story that'll rope me in. So if you like what you see with Night Terrors this July, I don't know, don't sleep. I don't know.
Working on the Night Terrors. Boom, boom.
So there are some great books that are coming out. There's some great books coming out this week. I hear of the new Dawn of DC. Green Lantern's been getting some really good reviews, especially now that...
Yeah. Is it true that both Green Lantern up until now and Aquaman don't have a running series at this point?
I think so. I think it might be
kind of crazy.
And it's funny because right now it's such like I don't know too much about the Aquaman, but I know that Green Lantern, he's not really... Hal Jordan is basically on Earth, which is in quarantine by the Guardians, so they're going to go into that. There's always some shit going on with the Guardians, so. Another title that I thought was actually really cool is Green Lantern Spirit World. It's written by Alyssa Wong and drawn by Hanang. The series really cool. Stars We Are Legends newcomer Zanzu and spins out of the Lazarus planet Dark Fate. So after Xanthi teams up with John Constantine and Batgirl Cassandra Cain, Cassandra is trapped in the spirit world and Xanth in the real world. So now Xanth and Constantine, I'm sure I said the name wrong, is a running joke here. It's Splash Pages. We know our news, but we can't say names right. Must join forces to rescue Cass from whatever lurks within the former mystical dimension. Personally, I love these covers, especially because the way they're doing Cass, who's already pretty badass, they're kind of giving her a bit of a magic from the X-Men vibe with the Soul Sword. Although
I like that.
Although let's be honest, Cassandra Cain doesn't really need any improvement. She's always been a badass ever since she was introduced. And then next would be from the White Knight universe. White Knight presents Generation Joker 1. The start of a 6-issue miniseries is bridging the gap between the Beyond the White Knight and now the upcoming super in focus World's Finest. It'll star the children of Harley Quinn and Joker / Jack Napier going on a road trip to learn about their father. We'll also come across some of his enemies. This will be written by Katana Collins and Clay McCormick, by art by Mirka Andolfo. So that first issue drops this week, so definitely check that out if you're a fan. And last but not least, and then we'll get to our hopefully our guest and talking about the great books we went over. Under Geoff Johns' new Golden Age banner, there are 3 new series that have been announced. Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, Jace G. Garrick, the Flash, and Wesley Dodds, the Sandman. So these are all spinning out of essentially things that started with Flashpoint Beyond in 2022 that encompasses Johns and Yanin Mikhail Janin's Justice Society of America series, and Johns and Todd Nanook's Stargirl and Lost Children miniseries, which wraps up this week. So Johns is extremely pumped about this. This is Alan Scott's first solo series since 1949. So the series, written by Tim Sheridan and artist Cian Tormey, you're going to see Alan's coming of age tale, where he must embrace the man he is, become the hero he's meant to be. And in the end, he's going to gain a greater understanding of himself and unlock some new power within him, an unknown ability that'll make him the most powerful Green Lantern. For Jay Garrick in The Flash, which from writer Jeremy Adams and Diego Olortugui.
I have no idea. I can't.
I know.
I'm not looking at the names.
No, I know.
Sorry,
I was like, should have practiced. We're going to be seeing stories with Jay Garrick and now his long lost daughter Judy. So, which I was like, when did that happen? So Jay Garrick has been reunited with his long lost daughter Judy, but figuring out how to connect with her is proving difficult. They'll need to work to find common ground when a mission that started in Jay's early days as the Flash comes roaring into day. But will the Flash and the Boom, I guess is her name, be able to thwart a plan that's been in the works for decades? And the last one is Wesley Dodd's Sandman from Rob Venditti and Riley Rossimo. It's essentially, I guess this is the story at that time where it talks about his origins, believing that he believes in a hopeful world. He believes that humanity can cure itself or its cure for its ills. So he learns about the horrors of World War II from his dad, creates a sleep gas that will allow for humane warfare. He records this all in his journal, finds out it's been stolen, and he must find the culprit and stop them before they fall into the wrong hands and threaten to pull the United States at the next World War. So all of these will be released October 2023 from DC. I don't know. I'm not going to lie. It's really nice to see these older characters still in play. I mean, normally you just have to read Justice Society to see them, but I think it's pretty exciting or new stories for these older characters. But that's all the news I had. So you guys want to put in your 2 cents and then, yep.
Yeah, sure. Looking forward to maybe checking out the Golden Age stuff, and I'm interested in a couple of these like Night Terror dealies, but then I really for Marvel probably check out the Ultimate Invasion stuff, and other than that, I mean anything that's got a black and white symbiote suit can go pound sand as far as I'm concerned.
Not the sand.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I won't really be picking up any of these. Maybe the Night Terrors. That looks interesting. I do enjoy me some Damian Wayne, so that'll be some good stories.
Yeah, I will say just one thing. Like, I know Zeb Wells' run of Amazing Spider-Man right now is apparently. I mean, I always find it weird when they say, "Oh, it's controversial." That just means that a lot of fans are up in arms about it. And I heard recently that the recent issue 25, which is coming out this week, is apparently possibly so ridiculous that they were advised to have security for future signings. And our guest is here, so I'm going to shut up right now.
Ridiculous in what?
Yeah, Eric is here.
Ridiculous in what way, Drew?
Sorry. Woo! Hey, Eric, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Yeah, hello.
Hello again, sir.
Nice to see you again, Drew. So as I was telling Drew earlier, if I hop off unexpectedly, it's just because we had some storms rolling through intermittently. So if I hear something that sounds bad, I'll just boop and unplug. So yeah.
Perfectly understandable. Thank you for coming through, though. We really do appreciate it.
Happy to, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
100%. Thank you.
Drew, you want to introduce our guest?
I mean, he's already here, but everybody, welcome our esteemed guest, writer extraordinaire from the worlds of IDW, Marvel, your Saturday morning cartoons. He's written things that you would thoroughly enjoy, from Ghostbusters to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's done Spider-Man or two, even a Marvel team. Currently working on Godzilla. And possibly a Jet Jaguar, but we didn't say that. Yeah, everybody, the one, the only, Minnesota's own, Erik Burnham, everyone.
Yay!
The cover's been released. Yes, there's a Jet Jaguar.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Yeah. Jet Jaguar. Okay, cool. We can talk about that now. But yeah. So I had Eric. So I had everybody on the show. We read 3 of the crossovers that you worked on. We did one of the first ones, which was Mars Attacks versus the Real Ghostbusters, which you did back in 2012. Then we read the Get Real crossover, and then Transformers. Because I figured, why not? We get an even 10 for them all to read. So we have questions. So I'm going to let the others ask their questions first, because I'm just going to sit back and sip this mug.
All of them?
No,
You
not
want me
all
to
of
ask
them.
them? Oh, okay.
No, I'm just going to sit back and...
Well,
Glad you showed up, Drew. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, he's like,
You're
I'm
welcome,
just
man.
going to let you all talk. My first question, really, as I was reading through these, the only like complaint I would have is that I wanted more from each of them. Like, I was reading them, and I'm like, he must have left something out here. There must be more story that we're just missing. So, does that happen sometimes when you're writing some of these stories, that like because of time or the size constraints, do you have to leave some of the story out?
Sometimes, yeah. Other times it just happens that, there are editorial notes and licensor notes, and we want you to add this or take this out. And it doesn't always sand away easily. And yeah, sometimes I just run out of space. And sometimes there isn't anything left out intentionally. It just might seem that way. And you can't control when that happens with a reader. So
Understandable.
So one of our fans and frequent collaborators, Carrie, she read the same stories that we did, and she loved that the Mars Attacks one started with the War of the Worlds broadcast. She thought that was just absolutely stellar. She's an old soul like that. And I was doing some research, and I came across an interview done with CBR at that time, and that Tom Waltz, who was the editor, did that, and TMNT. It was like, hey, can you just come up with this idea? And you molded over a road trip where you had that idea. So I mean, you're, like I said, you're bringing 2 properties together. The Tim Burton and Ivan Reitman. Like, how? Like, did you just like somehow see a billboard and it was like, that's it, I got it. That.
well, I mean, the trick with it was it's Ghostbusters, so we needed to have something to do with ghosts. And then why are the Martians ghosts? Why would they be ghosts? And then Way of the Worlds popped to mind. So I mean, it was just a series of whys that led me to it. But I wrote and was working on a good chunk of this issue. What happened was I was invited to a small convention. It was a manga and anime convention that was just trying to move into other realms of pop culture. It was the first year that they expanded. And so it was a hotel convention, and some fans, some attendees had requested 3 adjoining rooms as party rooms. The hotel gave them the room on the left and the room on the right, and put me right in the middle to break it up. So I wasn't able to sleep the entire weekend. So that might have contributed to some of the weirder moments in the issue. As I was sitting there just trying to, stay sane.
I was actually going to ask, as a writer, like, because artists and stuff, they're known to have to like do all these commissions while they're at cons. I was going to ask, beyond the signings, like, are you out there just taking in the sights? But I guess you're actually sitting there writing.
Well, I mean, in my room I write, and when I'm sitting at a convention table, I do sketch. I mean, I started out drawing my stories, so I can at least doodle when I'm at the table. So that does help pass the time.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
Well, yeah, he did a variant cover for the 4th issue of the Get Real series. So it was very, very cool. I own that one. But I did have one of another questions that our associate had was that she actually brought up this interesting parallel, and it was actually related to the Transformers Ghostbusters series. So in Ghostbusters 3, in the first IDW series, you had Ildunis talks to Ray and says that he was personally chosen to be the selector of Gozer because of the connection to supernatural, and that is also why Vigo was able to possess him in Ghostbusters 2. So she wanted to know, what was it about Starscream in your mind that allowed him to become the selector for the destruction of Cybertron by Gozer?
It was a lot simpler in this case. There wasn't any lore behind it. It was just a matter of hearing Chris Latta's voice as Starscream, apologizing and say, "This wasn't my fault." A giant monster comes to destroy their entire planet. That's the entire reason I picked it. And it just made the most sense. Who would be the most entertaining to see cause this problem? Yeah, it's going to be Starscream.
Yeah.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Totally. And
I did read all of these too, with all the voices speaking through the comic, so it was fantastic. You did made for the reading. I flew through the books myself.
Yeah, that's always been my goal with it, to make it sound well when it's a movie, TV, you know, something where the voices are established and easy to recognize. It was my goal to make it sound right or read right, I guess.
Well, I mean, I would say from the word go, when I started reading the Ghostbusters ongoing series, I admittedly I picked it up because I'm still a member of Comixology Unlimited, and they were offering it as one of their free library rental type deals. And I was like, I'm not usually the biggest fan of tie-in kind of comics, you know, like something that ties back to an established property. But I love Ghostbusters, and I saw the artwork and I was like, wow, this looks pretty good. Let me check it out. And by the end of the first trade, I was like, oh, so I'm the asshole that's going to need to read every single one of these now. Fantastic. And
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Because just you saying, like, when you have something that's already been established and trying to make sure that it actually sounds like it to whomever the reader may be, there's more to it, I think, than just, you know, the actual physical voice, you know, the timbre of somebody's voice hitting your ear, but more the voice of the story, the way that it's actually supposed to read and play out. And the stories that I read by you throughout this entire series were nothing short of pitch perfect. I honestly was so mad at the same time as admiring all of the stories that were going across my face, because at this point in time, remember, there was no afterlife or anything like that. And I was just like, why the isn't anybody going to these guys and asking them what they should do for the next Ghostbusters thing? It was so frustrating. But at the same time, I love that you enveloped every bit of lore that came before that series, including the video game, and that it was just all so seamlessly incorporated into it. I just gotta say, as impressive as it was, how difficult did you find it at times to stick to how you knew the characters like organically would react? Like the fine line between, like, this is how the character would react, and this is how Erik would react if he were that character.
No, it's with most of these books, the voices are so clear in my head. That's all I hear. You know, that's all I hear as I'm writing the story, is what dialogue they would have in my head. So the way I would react is not necessarily the way the character would. Every once in a while, it something comes along where, okay, this leads to this too easily, so I'm going to go over this way. But for the most part, the characters drive the story in the sense that something they say that's logical to their character might change the plot a little bit or a lot bit. Some whole stories have come out of just a panel's worth of dialogue. So
yeah, totally. Speaking of the Ghostbusters Transformers, my associate Jeremy there, reminded me that the book does end on a cliffhanger. And I saw that you had always intended to do a sequel, kind of similar to what you did with the Turtles crossover. But of course, now that the Ghostbuster property is with Dark Horse, which they could still knock on your door. Do you? How do I say this? Could you maybe say like one teaser of where you were thinking you might have taken the sequel, or is that in like the Burnham vault for later in case?
Excuse me. It's I had not a full pitch, not a full synopsis, but I had ideas that I was bouncing around with Tom and David Marriott for the sequel. There was some stuff that I really wanted to do. I thought it would be funny for Peter and Skylinks to be, dealing with each other. I thought that would be fun. I thought it would be fun for Grimlock to get going with a proton pack. Just little things like that. There was just a bunch of big, this would be fun to see ideas for that. I don't remember them all. I remember those two specifically, but it just, it would have been so much fun to do. I'm kind of bummed that it didn't happen, but I at least the first one came together. So I can't complain too much.
No, I was excited when I saw Grimlock on the ship. I was just like, oh crap, he's got the Dinobots.
I love Grimlock. Grimlock is my favorite. He's one of the few toys that I got from the original line as it came out. And I love dinosaurs. I love the Transformers. So Grimlock was just, a no-brainer. And yeah, so it was he had to make an appearance. I had to get him in somehow in a cameo. And I was trying the entire run of Beast Wars to figure out a way to get Grimlock in there too. All the Dinobots, and I got stonewalled up until just a very subtle cameo at the end.
Oh god damn, that's sad. But and then it's funny because you brought up in an interview that when you were trying to figure out the voice and speech for X, aka with Ectotron, that it took you a minute, and it was your frequent collaborator Dan Showing who did it. He said that, and I quote, "I read it as David Hyde Pierce was the voice of Ectotron," and I was like, Mr. Abe Sapien himself. I was like, okay, like, yeah, that works, man.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that, especially the whole guys, come on, this is my thing. Like, I have purpose. This is great. I have friends. I was like, yeah, you only had to replace their car to do it. Good job.
Yeah, as soon as Dan suggested that, I leaned into it a little bit over the rest of the series, and it worked pretty well.
Oh yeah. Now, because I reread that, and it's like you just said, I was like, I could not hear it. I was like, wow, that's superb casting right there. Like, yeah.
I need to reread that now again.
Right? Yeah. Just hear that.
I had no idea. Yeah. That's outstanding.
But
we beat out the first annual with the version of the Sandman by figuring out who we wanted him to sound like. We were sitting in an airport after San Diego one year, and we were just bouncing around who it would be fun for him to sound like, and we came down to Phil Hartman, and that's where that's kind of how the story built out of.
Oh my god, that's genius! I got to reread that now.
Unreal.
Love Phil Hartman. And it's so funny because I don't know if I brought this up when we interviewed you on Justin's show. Hashtag check that out, guys. But I always loved in the series when you had Ray's spirit guide was essentially Belushi, and Belushi already playing a role supposedly as inspiration for Slimer. It was always so funny when he would just pop up, just straight up Jake Blues, just showing up, giving Ray ambiguous advice, being like, I mean, you can take it or leave it. I'm trying to help you, and just randomly pop everyone. I was just like, God,
he doesn't just show up as one of the Blues Brothers too, though.
Well, I mean, like I said, that
he shows up as Bluto from Animal House as well.
Oh yes, he does. Right,
he's wearing the toga, and he's got
yeah. So it's just I you and Dan, and it's funny because when I was doing the research that I provided the guys with, like people who are a far bigger fan than me, like analyzed all of your books and they found every reference. And I didn't realize how dedicated I was till I was just compiling the notes for the Get Real. And someone was like, oh yeah, this was from that episode. I was like, wow, I thought I was a fan. Apparently I am nothing. Because this guy, all of it.
Yeah, Dan hid just legions of Easter eggs, and he gave them the heads up on some of them. But the funny thing that I always found with the Easter egg hunters was when they found something that wasn't actually there, it was just like a coincidence. This is a reference to a commercial that came out in 1987. No, it's not. It was just
okay.
I saw a few of those things over the years, and I mean, 90% of the time, 80% of the time, it was a coincidence.
I think that's half the fun when you start finding little things like that, though. And those same people, it was a snowball effect for them. You know, they saw the overt, like, placed Easter egg, and just like an actual Easter egg hunt, it's like, oh, there's the bright pink one right there, which means there's probably 3 more right around it if I just look hard enough. Like, no, those are just rocks. But good E for effort, though.
It's not a highlights magazine.
It's the fun part of it is how Dan influenced every artist who popped onto Ghostbusters to do the same thing. When Evan Shane or when Doc came on to do a couple of issues, I said, dude, why are you this? There are so many. He goes, I'm trying to keep up with Dan. And he got some fun ones in there. So
yeah, and it's funny because I, being a self-taught artist myself, I always used to read the thing, and I just remember remarking to Dan that I was like, he draws hands so well, and I'm like, I can't for the life of me do hands or feet, so I have to stop ripping on Rob Liefeld for feet only slightly. But I was just like, my God, like, and it was just watching the whole thing. I was like, he makes it look so easy. And I'm like, I can do that. And like, I cannot do that. So, and that's another great thing is it's similar to other great, you were with him pretty much the whole run, Dan showing. I mean, there were like occasional fill-ins and whatnot and, guest artists, but the whole time. And I was just like, it just created this beautiful sense of continuity, but you saw how versatile Dan was. I mean, he adapted so many different styles, especially when you saw the crossovers, like in Get Real 2, when you have Proteus going to the different universes. You've got Extreme, you've got Sanctum of Slime, and then doing the research, you said that there were ones you didn't even get to do. You had like a list, and the one that killed me was that there was one where it would have been a Caucasian Winston and African American Peter, Ray, and Egon, and I was just like, now that I know that this is here, I want to see this. The same thing with the steampunk Ghostbusters, which I was like, I have a shirt. This is canon. But I know Dan was too busy to design and just went with the pre-existing ones. And then even then, he said there were ones that you couldn't do or weren't allowed, like the Lego ones. The females got a team that was just ghosts, not the People Busters, and one that was just Janine and Lewis, and then one that was Special Agent Melanie Ortiz and some other female characters. So, yeah, just dumped a lot of them.
Oh yeah, tons. Dan is really. Oh God, super versatile. I've said before, he comes from animation, so if there's a model, he can be on model.
Right.
And that's just, I mean, he is just a chameleon, and that it's just so much fun to work with him. When we started doing Godzilla, he started drawing it very straight, but by the end, he's throwing in just manga and anime tropes left and right, with the expressions being more exaggerated than he used to draw. And it was, it's just great. I love working with Dan, and we've kept it going for a good long time. And that did come to mind how rare it was to have just a long-term creative team, and we
Mhm.
appreciated that and leaned into it as best we could.
Yeah, but like when you're doing
Knocked out of
like
the park, man.
yeah, seriously, but like just bring up that list that you were able to do and not do and you get to, do you like type that all up and submit it to the powers that be and they just like, I just imagine you can email back with like a check or an X, like yes, no, yes, no.
Mhm.
Like
Well, some
in terms
of
of
it I did ask for, yeah. Some of it I asked for, and some of it, I mean, I left. That's the kind of thing where Dan gets to have fun, so I leave space for him. And sometimes
right.
he draws things in that they say you can't do this, no. Um, so I mean, he threw in the Filmation Ghostbusters at one point, and
Yes, they did.
they were gone. And at one point in Ghostbusters 101, he had the Stranger Things kids
So they did.
front and center. They were removed before it went to print, but I mean, it was unmistakable, and it was just like, no, Dan,
Yeah.
you can't. It's it's too obvious. But yeah, no, it's
Now, I'm kind of curious with some of the illustrated representations of certain characters or individuals. When you guys were going through and plotting it out, both dialogue and panel, did he ever surprise you with who he may have chosen to be the basis of a design for a character? And
yeah.
and how often, if that happened, did it actually translate into the comic book itself?
Oh yeah, he surprised me all the time. Usually it didn't translate too much unless it was a character that was going to be used more than once, because the scripts always have to be done and sent off and approved before Dan got a hold of them.
Okay.
So I wasn't necessarily able to see what he would do and build on it unless we had, like I said, more issues down the line. The Where was I going with that? The one time he surprised me and I didn't like it was when I asked for a specific look, and he decided to make it a use a model character from the real Ghostbusters, which there wasn't anything wrong with that, except it had a different name. So fans were going, "This is wrong. This is the wrong name for the character. Why did you change his name?"
Right.
And that was the only time where I said, "Dan, I wish you wouldn't have." But I mean, it still looked good. It was just the why did you change his name emails I got for a while.
What's with all the having to send your scripts in and everything, what's the most difficult property that you've worked on that you get a lot of no, you can't do that? Like I know with Godzilla, there's you have to get everything approved by Toho and stuff before it's able to be put in the book. Who's is that something that's like really like pestering to you or anything, or do
No.
you really just write from the heart and usually it gets approved anyways?
Well, what it is approval happens with every licensed property. Everything has to be double checked and approved by the licensor, and some things have to go through legal checks. For example, right now working on the comic, the Saturday Morning Adventures, the '87 Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
It was can we use this character? That character you can use. How about this character? That character we have to check with the lawyers. So you can't use it until the lawyers say yes. Stuff like that pops up, and sometimes it's just something that they don't want to do. The toughest thing that I ever had was with the Ninja Turtles. It was with when I was doing tie-in stuff for the 2012 Ninja Turtles, and the show was still on the air. So if it's an active property that they're actively doing things with, they have a lot more. They're more nitpicky. I mean, and necessarily so. So
Yeah.
they just give it more scrutiny, and they may say something like, "This is too similar to an idea that's in production that will not be out for 2 years on screens, but you're doing it now, so we have to say no." And then the free comic book day book I did 10 years ago now. it was super coincidental. I had something very similar to something that wasn't an episode, and they came out like a week apart. The episode came, I think, a week after the comic, and there was more readers than I would have expected, thinking that the show ripped us off somehow. But Nickelodeon approved it because it was different enough. It was just, it was just a superficial coincidence, but it was enough for people watching to go, hey, wait a minute. But yeah, they try to avoid that. And if there is, if it's a inactive property, as in, the TV show, movie, what have you, isn't actively going, it's a lot easier. They let a lot more things slide, and they did that with Ghostbusters for many years. But once it's active and once it's going, they don't want, they want to keep the brand managed. I mean, there's whole brand management departments, and they also look at it. Hasbro had licensing and brand management look at everything. So 2 different departments, and if they both didn't agree, it didn't happen.
Right. Okay. Well, Jeremy, do you feel that he's answered your question?
Yes, very thoroughly.
Well,
are there any properties that you wish you could work on, but they keep saying no?
I mean, there are always properties that I wish I could work on, and some of them are unlikely just because they're so popular that the list of creators who would want to work on the property are very long. Bigger name creators. So I mean, Indiana Jones would be a lot of fun to work on. Yes, but the line starts here and it goes for a mile. But I mean, it'd be a hoot too. I mean, I'd love to jump on and do something with Star Trek. It'd be fun to do. Star Wars. It'd be fun to. I mean, all the big cultural touchstones, just because they're so bled into the culture that everybody knows them, whether they are super familiar with them or not. I mean, those are the kind of things that are fun to play with, toys that are fun to play with, especially if you don't know as much. You're not hobbled by being a fan in that case, where you just stop yourself from doing things because no, that's not the way it's done. So J.J. Abrams on Star Wars versus J.J. Abrams on Star Trek. The Force Awakens was certainly popular and well regarded and well loved, but it was not as it wasn't as outside the box as his Star Trek was. So
fair, very fair. So I had a bunch of questions, but I'm trying to give these guys more of an opportunity because I could talk all night. Because your how do I say this? Your crossover with Transformers, I feel kind of had a little mini trend, because then there was Back to the Future, then there was Terminator, meaning the Transformers, and I mean, and then even then, like, you had toys, So how does it feel like this idea that you came up with, worked on, there's a toy now? So like, oh, hey, Eric, did you see we did your Optimus Prime Ghostbuster, or here's Ectotron, and you're like, holy shit, like
in this case,
do you own one? And you're like,
I don't even have one. I didn't get one, but in this case, the toys came first. They take so long to tool that toy was in the works about 1.5 to 2 years before we started on the comic.
Oh, no kidding.
Wow.
So they said, here's what we're going to do. We should do a comic of it, because, I mean, Ghostbusters Transformers is not something that they might have considered until they got into business to do that toy. And then they said, well, now it makes sense. Now we should do it. And so it came from that. And then the Optimus Prime, they're going to do a repaint for San Diego. You should add it in. Yeah, okay, I can add it in. I've got time. Sometimes it's just like that, I mean, how could it be fun for the story when it's,
right?
Yeah, but in this case, the toys came first. So,
okay.
As much as I wish I could take more credit for it, no. All the backstory was me and Dan, but yeah, the toy itself and the design, Hasbro. 2 years before we started.
Wow.
Do you happen to be a Masters of the Universe fan? Because I really am, and I really need an ongoing comic of that. And I believe Dark Horse now has the rights to it. You could put
Dark
in a
Horse does. I am a fan. I think if there were to be an ongoing, I think Tim Seeley would probably
yeah.
gut me if I got it. He didn't. And but yeah, no, I was that was my franchise when it first came out. I know my brother had GI Joe and I had Masters of the Universe, so I mean
Yeah.
I was all over that.
So we can be friends now, Eric. So come on over, hang out. I'll show you my toys. We'll be cool.
You have passed the test. And it's so funny because I feel like now, like I feel like before crossovers were, I don't want to say a niche thing, but it wasn't really. As now, like you have Turtles and the Power Rangers, you have and so many other things happening. And I remember sometimes someone's like, "Hey, what crossover would you like?" I was like, "Oh, I'd really love a Street Sharks meets the Turtles." Just kind of a, oh hey, like we're basically the same thing, except we do not like pizza and you guys love pizza. Let's fight our mutual enemies. Kind of like in Super Secret Crisis War, where all the Cartoon Network villains joined. So naturally, the heroes got together. It was like, all right, we can work together to stop these idiots.
Oh God, that was fun. That was fun.
Yeah. So I just think it's crazy that. But also, Eric, I mean, you also got to do a little bit more than just the comics. I mean, you got to write, and it's funny because every once in a while I still bring this up, Tobin's Spirit Guide, which you did with Kyle Holtz. Holtz did the illustrations for it, and he collaborated with you on one of your first projects, which was the Infestation crossover.
That was the first Ghostbusters thing I did. Yep.
Yeah, and I just because I follow him on Instagram, and he's like, oh yeah, I just bang these sketches out. I'm like, I wish, like the same thing with you and your sketches. You're like this. I'm like, I posted my art every Halloween, and it's funny because every Halloween I always draw a Sam Hain. And it's always the same one. It's him pointing, and it's just Happy Halloween. Just so with that, I have to ask because I'm a huge Real Ghostbusters fan. Do you have a favorite episode of the Real Ghostbusters, or just all? Like,
it's gosh, the thing is, and I was all over it when the show came out, but it's been so long since I've seen so many of them.
Really? I was figuring since you stick so well to the
oh yeah, no,
I thought you sat there and studied them every weekend.
Well, when I was rewriting it again, I did watch, but I mean there were so many episodes over the almost decade they were on the air.
Yep.
I don't remember all of them. I watched all of them.
Right.
But let's see. Some of the ones that come to mind as, if not favorites, then ones that lodged in my memory, when they went to Tombstone, the Wyatt Earp and them. I loved that one. I loved the Collect Call of Cthulhu, and Winston playing baseball to save Peter. I mean, those are ones that stuck because they were just they hit me on some level. So
yeah, no,
it may be better. But not many.
Hey, no, I get it. When I was a kid, I still had these 3 VHS Ghostbuster tapes, and they still work, which is crazy because I watched them so much that I tortured my grandmother because we'd rewatch the same tape over every day, and it was with Revenge of Murray the Mantis, the one where the praying mantis float comes alive and they've got to release Stay Puft. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I still draw a praying mantis and send it to my grandmother. Just be like, Murray says hi. And she's just like, never again. But yeah.
The watching movies on end, I just, this comes to mind when around 89, 90, my little brother got into he got into he was 5 years old. He got into watching his favorite movies over and over. And these were the ones that he watched: Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Batman, Return of the Jedi, Temple of Doom.
Good taste.
in a cycle,
Yeah.
just over and over. So I've seen those or heard those so many times.
Ugh.
And I like it too, but it's just like, it's every time. Which one is going to be on the TV when
I wish
go
your
past the TV?
brother was one of my kids, because goddamn, if I don't watch another time of Happy Feet again, I'm gonna shoot myself. Oh my god, those sound like great movies to watch over and over again.
Those were the ones we had. So he cycled, and it was, we could recite them. And about 91, we could recite them backwards. I mean, it's just, I was like, there are other Star Wars movies besides Return of the Jedi. Oh, because we never see them.
Right, and it's like,
anyway.
No, it's funny because I actually quoted Jedi recently to a friend of mine. I was like, it was when they're on the barge, and I think I'm starting to see something. I was like, no, there's nothing out here. You used to live out here, You're gonna die out here, convenient. And I just, because I was arguing with my friend because he's a pessimist, so he's always arguing that Empire is the best, and I'm an optimist. So we have basically the Randall Dante fight about which is the better Star Wars. And we just agreed that the script is better for Empire, because Empire was Irving Kershner. It was the least George Lucas, and then Return is just more fun and and it's just a little lighthearted, and it's got Ewoks. So I was like, it was for the kids. This is before Porgs, before we were obnoxiously clear that we were trying to sell a toy. This was just, hey, these are teddy bears that are going to help the fight instead of, hey, So in the end, we were like, listen, whatever works. We just all agree that Mandalorian is still the best. And then we're like, okay, cool. We found that bridge, like Star Wars fans should. We found the bridge to cross. Like, Mandalorian is the best. All right, cool. We can be friends again. All right, cool.
Well, we're about 6 months from the online fandom saying Filoni doesn't understand Star Wars. He's ruining everything. We need to get him out of here.
Oh yeah, for real.
I hope they do that before I have to rewatch Rebels or start watching Rebels.
Yes, start watching it.
I did enjoy Rebels though, but I mean, still, it doesn't take long before
Oh, I missed out on a lot of the cartoons, and now that Mandalorian is going on, and they're like talking about Ahsoka coming out, and I'm really enjoying the story, but I'm even catching now where I'm like, I don't know who that character is, and people are like, oh, you should have seen Rebels, blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, son of a.
You see, Jeremy, I've told you time and time again, when someone says to you, you should have seen this, your answer should always be, no, I shouldn't have. All right? If you
there's a lot of wikis you can catch up real easily. 5 minutes of reading. I haven't seen Clone Wars either. I've only seen the 4th season of Rebels, but I mean, they did a good job of I haven't seen 3 seasons, but you were kept up to speed by the show. It told you everything you need to know. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, that's true. They do that at the beginning of every episode. They're like,
and just in the story itself, it doesn't make it hard to follow. So they're accessible, and I appreciate that.
Well, according to Eric, now I can start on season 4 and be all set.
Yeah, Jeremy, you just hit up Wikipedia and you're golden.
There you go,
golden kid.
Wikipedia, remember that. And it's actually funny, Eric, that you bring up the Collect Call of Cthulhu, because that was written by now the late great Michael Reeves, who recently passed. And it's funny because in my job at Screamer, when I was the hiring manager for comics, we had this kid applies, and his last name was Reeves, and I was like, and on his resume he was like, yeah, I'm the son of writer Michael Reeves, and I was like, I kind of felt like Deadpool too. It was like, you're in. I was like, but I was like, I had to stop myself. I was like, so Dash, your dad, can I his work? And I was just like, don't fanboy.
Just talk him up about his dad's work, and then be like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah. Like,
yeah,
so
right.
When do I start? Monday? Oh no, you didn't get the job. I just had to ask you a few questions.
Right, exactly. But it was just so funny. I was just like, this is the closest I'm gonna get. And then he passed away. I was like, God damn it, the hell, man.
Never hired this guy for no reason.
It wasn't even that. It was never work with your hero's kids, because it's not the direct line to them that you think it is.
I would say just like to tack on with you bringing up Call of Cthulhu,
Mhm.
Eric, Army of Darkness or Reanimator, which one?
Boy, I'm gonna go with Army of Darkness. Look, I got a big kick out of that. I saw that a long time before I saw anything Reanimator. Although I do love Jeffrey Combs. So yeah,
How
and I
could you not?
and I did I you know I got to revisit it a bit when I wrote that series last year. So a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
it's kind of funny to me too because just a week or so ago, I watched the DC animated version of the Elseworld, the Doom that came to Gotham, which is
Mhm.
very Lovecraftian. And then today, because I was able to see it in theaters, but my wife was not able to. Today, she had the day off from work. I work from home. She was watching Evil Dead Rise in the
Nice.
next room.
Very
And
nice.
yeah, it was great. And I was like, hey, we're talking to Erik Burnham tonight. This is awesome. Army of Darkness versus Reanimator. And my wife was like, I know all the words you just said, but I don't know what you mean by them. And I was
Yep.
like, oh, that's right. I forgot. I'm the nerd here.
Right.
But yeah, like it was just funny how that lined up. And both of those, Reanimator and Army of Darkness, they are both really fun as just films themselves, like the third part of one series, the first part of technically a series, if you want to call it that. But I agree. I'm an Army of Darkness guy over Reanimator. I've always liked the
Hail to the king, baby.
theatricality of Ash as a character, and the expansions on his character is done through comic books and the multiple video games. But to take something that's so tangentially connected to Lovecraftian lore, and then something that is directly based upon it, and just have them go toe to toe, like that must have just been so much fun.
Well, in this case, as much as I go after the voices, it was just playing with Bruce Campbell's snark and Jeffrey Combs's snark, and how do they snark together or apart? That was the fun for me. That's what I was looking forward to, and that's what I enjoyed a great deal.
Yeah.
No.
It shows through. In all honesty,
It
it's
totally
so much
does. And it's funny because I remember reading the original, because I forget who, I think it was Dynamite did their Army of Darkness. They had a Reanimator versus Army of Darkness, and I enjoyed it because it was James Corrick and Nick Bradshaw, whose work I always loved on that. But there were parts of it I was just like, what the hell is this? Because they're going through mirrors and stuff, and I'm just like, what? And then but like yours, like I was just like, this is just like fun. You know what I mean? And that's what I enjoy, like horror. Like I love my horror, like it fucks you up or gets you. But I'm sometimes like, yeah, you know what? I just kind of miss horror fun. Like, like, and it's always funny because that's why I love recommending horror books or horror movies to people, because sometimes people don't know this shit exists. Like, about Army of Darkness, but you know about Bubba Hotep.
Like, Hotep's great.
Expand your world, my man. Like, get nuts. So I just saw your Army of Darkness Reanimator. It was just expanding the world. It was like, why not? Like Brandon said, they're both Lovecraftian, so why the hell not? They would be in the same universe, and they'd still be both dumbasses get caught up in their own shit. So boom.
Yeah, Necronomicon Rising. Oh, what are these two dumbasses gonna do?
Yeah.
The only thing I remember them, giving me the hard and fast on is put in some time travel. All right.
We can do that. We can. And one other thing I definitely ask is because your stuff also references a lot of books that were like very early IDW, even before you were in the game. Like one of your like Crossing Over, which is the big Mondo Ghostbuster crossover. We saw Rachel Unlighter, who is a character from Ghostbusters Displays Aggression by Scott Lobel and Eliza Krasinski, who have both had the pleasure of meeting. And I was like, oh my God, like, yes, like, why do people sleep on this? This is Ghostbusters and time travel. Like, thank you. So did you read some of the other ones? Is like when you're doing it, did you read some of the other Ghostbusters stories? And because for instance, I know there was another book, which was my first one, which was Other Side, that Keith Champagne and Tom Nguyen did. And I was Ghostbusters versus like old mob bosses. I was like fucking awesome. But they're like, yeah, the fans really didn't like this. They didn't like where it goes. And I was like, man, Ghostbuster fans are fickle. Like, geez.
Most fans are.
Well, because Jeremy, when we had Eric on the other show, I brought up that they crossed over with the ATC, the Paul Feig Ghostbusters, and Eric mentioned that while some people really liked it, like I actually really enjoyed it, so that some people like would come up to him and be like, you know, you really shouldn't have included those girls with those guys. Like, could have kept it pure, man. Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm just like, are you going to insult this man who's getting paid to do what you wish you were? Like, sir, reevaluate yourself. Like, so
Yeah,
What the power of the internet has done.
yeah. There's less of a filter in public.
I could.
But yeah. No, gosh, as far as reading the old stuff, no, but not for any. I mean, not initially, but nothing, against the books. I just don't live anywhere near a comic shop, and so
Right.
I always even know when something has come out or have access to it when it does. I did read them later. I did read them, especially I gave it a reread before I did Crossing Over. Make sure I some of the bits about Rachel Wright, but no, it makes it hard sometimes doing research. It's have you editor, have you read all this? No, but that's fine. We'll send it to you. Oh, thank God.
Sweet.
So
Get a little package there. You're like, oh, fantastic. No, but all of that was just stupendous. Just seeing that, but I think that's the other thing is like, I know in June that there's a Ghostbusters Day that they're doing in the city at the firehouse in Tribeca, and it was a huge event. A bunch of people. I think the Alessi brothers, who did the Saving the Day soundtrack, are supposed to be doing like a mini concert. And it just like they keep adding to it. Like there's going to be a wedding there. The guy, the redheaded kid who in the crowd scene, the first one was like, Ghostbusters, all right. He's going to be there signing autographs. And I was just like,
all right, come on, man. There's such a thing as a bridge too far.
But listen, I'm just saying, like, it's like, Eric, like, how does it feel? You're part of that. You contributed, people are like, us fans were like, this guy did it. Like, he went to the containment unit and made it back. And we're like, kudos, sir. Like, how does that feel? Like, I can only imagine.
I'm glad to see the resurgence in popularity. It'd be fun to work on this stuff again. But as I said the last time I talked to you, right now the focus is on afterlife going forward and not looking back. So I think until Jason is ready to open up the toy box or let the old toy box be used again, it'll be a lot more limited to what they decide to do in the future. So so I feel left out isn't the right word for it. Maybe nudge it towards FOMO or something like that. I don't, I say it's somewhere between left out, but not a negative connotation, if that makes any sense. I used to still be involved, and I'm happy to see
you're on the bench. You're on the bench, and if you get called in, solid. But either way, you're there ready to play the game, and you're watching in the meantime.
Guys,
I'm glad to see it doing well, though. So yeah.
Yeah, guys, he's on some Force Ghost level. He's just in the back, like, I did my part. Like, I contributed. No one could take that away.
Listen, I mean, based what you would mention, Drew, in all honesty, based on the strength of adding Answer the Call alone in the crossover there, honestly, like, I was not a big fan of the movie, and that has nothing to do with the people in it at all. I think that the vast majority of the actresses in that movie are incredibly talented and funny people.
Yes.
It was more the direction that it was taken in,
Mhm.
that lies, you know, squarely on Paul Feig. I'm not trying to be negative about it. It was just for me personally, okay. Um, when I read those characters in the comic book that you had written, though, Eric, it was a completely different experience for me. So there is something to be said for how there's a redemptive quality to be found, and so through everything that you did on that series, those series, I should say, uh, it's nothing short of miraculous the amount of lore that you were able to, for lack of a better term, cram in there and have it all work so seamlessly and
Mhm.
actually be inclusive to all different types of fans of the entire property. That to me was like one of the coolest parts about it. If you liked real Ghostbusters, you liked Ghostbusters, you know, OG, you liked Answer the Call, you got a few
Extreme.
diff new thing. Yeah, I was gonna say a few new things thrown in. You had Extreme Ghostbusters thrown in at a point. All
Yep.
of that together. There was something there for everyone, but
Yeah.
also completely accessible for somebody who is not mired in it. And that's impressive.
No, appreciate it. You know, yeah, that's like I said earlier. Accessibility is a big thing that I appreciate in stories. So I'm glad to hear that I stuck the landing on it.
You did,
Totally
man.
get it.
You absolutely did. And I would, like I said, as somebody who is not that into like books that tie into an already existing property, I would not shut up about Ghostbusters forever. Like
Thank
I was
you.
telling everyone who would listen, like you got to
Me
read
too.
this book.
Oh yeah.
Like, all right, Brandon,
100%.
we get it, we get it.
No, no, you gotta read the book.
No, you don't understand. I brought the first 4 volumes. You have
Yeah,
to read it.
exactly. I brought the total containment. This would literally kill a man. Let's read
Yeah,
it.
like trying to explain, like, no, you don't understand why it's so funny. That's Eugene Levy next to him. It's Eugene
Right.
Levy. And they're like,
Yeah.
so
You
what?
know.
He had a scene and they cut it, but they made him his cousin here. And they're like, great, Brandon, fantastic. What's gonna end this conversation? You reading the book. Oh,
Yeah.
all right then. I painted
So,
myself into this corner.
yeah, and another question, Eric. I was rereading. Actually, I have two, but one is Spider-Man related because I love bringing back the fact that you still wrote part of the Scarlet Spider series in 2012, which I'm still a huge fan of. One of your backups took place inside the real Ghostbusters universe in the containment unit, and it was, I believe, involving the Boogeyman, which is still one of the top 5, in my opinion, Ghostbuster villains that ever was. That voice is still creeping me out, and I'm 35. Thanks, Frank Welker, nightmare man you are. Did you ever like imagine a story where they'd be like, you know, the Ghostbusters had stories where they were in the containment unit, although as Egon in the Prime universe pointed out, it doesn't work that way. Did you ever imagine a traveling through the containment unit story?
It was something that was considered. It was something that we would have done if we'd gotten back to the larger story of Ray trying to get, you know, his girl containment unit. So that's something that we, you know, that was it jotted down as a possibility, and you know, it might never have happened, but you know, it was thought of, it was considered. So future possibility at the time.
Wait, do it. Those are always the best. Those no, I always love those episodes because it was always so funny because you didn't think it, and you're like, oh no, there's like a whole world in there, and they're all pissed. So it's one of those like, don't you dare cut the power this time, because I mean I remember that in the Extreme Ghostbusters, it was that Egon was saying to Slimer, said, yeah, they're all out there, and then, remember, none of them don't like you. And someone's like, oh shit, well, he's right. We got to protect this. But and the second one is since your last interview, I actually reread The Scarlet Spider. I was like, man, it's been a minute. And there was one scene I wanted to ask you about. It was for those who don't know, Eric contributed to the Scarlet Spider series that was like 2011, 2012 for Marvel when they had Kane, one of the Spider clones, show up, and instead of being just another pawn of the Jackal, he made a life for himself in Texas, where there are apparently no superheroes. So he was the new Scarlet Spider. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. And there was a scene. It was the Craven scene, and I think it was because like I know there's news of Craven, the Craven movie and whatnot. Although there will be no Spider-Man, and I was just thinking to myself like when you're doing a co-writing thing, how does that work? Like you're co-writing a book with somebody. Does he like write half and then you write half? Do you how does that work?
There's a bunch of different ways to do it. I mean, you can go here, one person does a draft, another person does a polish, and then goes back to the first person to, it can be done that way. It can be done, you take this chunk of scenes, I'll take this chunk of scenes, or split it up by half. The way it was done here is the way it's probably easiest. Chris plotted it out and I just scripted it. So, and then once it went back to Chris, he tweaked the dialogue as he, saw fit, or as the editors requested. So, so a good chunk of the dialogue in the last 5 or 6 issues was mine. So that made me happy. That made through. But I mean, like you said, it was still his story.
Yeah, and it was so funny because, like I said, we're reading it, and I remember I was trying to justify it to somebody. I was like, Scarlet Spider. And they're like, what's so different between him and Peter? I said, well, because when Peter messages somebody, he doesn't save them and then curse them out for why the fuck they couldn't stay away from the goddamn car. And I was like, read this series, kids. Love your heroes. And then, that led on to you doing the New Warriors, but we talked about that last time. So
yeah, well, I mean, and I don't remember if I said it, but the fun that I had there was changing Kane's sense of humor, which I felt he still would have had. He changed his sense of humor from something more like Peter to I gave him a drier, more Egon-like sense of humor.
Yeah,
is what I went with for that. So especially in New Warriors. So
yeah, and your one Spider-Man panel where you had no dialogue.
Talk, no dialogue. I made up for it when I got to do the licensed Spider-Man book, but I'd still like a crack at the flagship character someday.
One day. So I'm good. Do you guys have any other questions?
Oh, I was wondering how does one actually go about getting the flagship character under their belt? Say if you want to get Spider-Man, like what do you got to do to get the other guys out of there?
I mean, I just want to write the character. I don't need to get anybody out of there. There's miniseries, there's one shots, there's annuals. Right. But the end of the day, the way to get in on a Spider-Man book is have the editor ask you. So when that happens, I will be ready to go.
There you go.
Nice. Yeah. I think for me, the last question I have, it might be kind of silly, but it was I genuinely geeked out about it because it's such a small thing, and I live for minutia. I live for stupid tiny details. In Ghostbusters, I think it was Ghostbusters International, maybe #1, but you guys have Jennifer Runyon, her character, show up.
Mm-hmm.
Was that planned to have that character be a medium at that point, or you're like, it would be really funny if we made it that character from the movie that Venkman was clearly trying to get a date with?
Somewhere in between the two. I just thought it would be fun to open it with Ray getting a reading, and it could be a brand new character, some generic stock character, or it's one of those things where I mean it's sometimes you put the thing in just because it'd be fun, and that was this case. I mean, realistic, probably not. Too coincidental, maybe, but it was fun, so we went with it.
I loved it. It was just another one of those things that made me fall in love with the entirety of the series. And
Agreed.
like, it's hard to explain to folks who don't get like caught up in those little winks and Easter eggs and nudges. It's like the same reason I love Stephen King books, because there's always something you're gonna find that connects to another book somewhere along.
Some
And you know, if it was enough for me to see like, you know, Eugene Levy show up right when Lewis gets picked up from the airport,
in the same car.
And you know, to see John Belushi, but then also, you know, like John Candy's original character that was cut show up in the comic book series. He's got his Doberman pinchers right next to him and the pencil mustache. I'm like, good God, these guys went through and scoured everything. This is incredible. But no, it's good to know that like a lot of times it just comes from like, hey, this could be fun, as opposed to like the mustache twirling, like, yes, the nerds will get this one. I appreciate that altogether.
I mean, you know, it's you know, that is part of it. And the Dobermans there, I even threw in a very subtle Magnum PI reference. So I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah, their names were what was that? Hera and Artemis.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God!
It's been so long since I read. I don't even think I caught that then.
Yeah,
it's subtle. It's subtle.
Wow.
I totally missed that, and it's funny because Brandon, you brought that up. I got yelled at over that because I wrote an article for Screen Rant talking about that John Candy cameo, and I mistakenly, I had the whole thing like mapped out. It was great. I called them German Shepherds in the article, which, okay, Brandon, just it was a small error. And this guy on Twitter felt the need to call me out by name about it, and he was just like, he's like, Screen Rant, you should tell your writer Drew Mollo to know the difference between a German Shepherd and a Doberman Pinscher.
Doberman Pinscher. You can't even remember the fucking name of it now. Magnificent.
And this whole thing, and it's not even like, you know, you should tell your writer. Like, he calls me out because I don't have a Twitter, I don't believe in it, and he calls me out like my full name, and I just remember reading it, and I just was like, is this making it? Am I important now? Is that? I was like, I'm getting called out on like, and then it would happen occasionally, and you know, it's you know, sometimes it's, you know, bad research, which I acknowledge. I'm like, yeah, I should have looked that over, and you know, you have a right, and
listen,
I
Drew,
get
just go rewatch some old Looney Tunes, the ones where they go over dog breeds. You'll never forget Doberman Pinscher again, because it's the dog that walks behind people going like this. I'm dead serious.
No,
I've never forgotten what a Doberman Pinscher is, because when I was 5 years old, I saw that cartoon.
No, it was funny, and I was just like, all right, like, I have no idea who the hell this guy is, but I guess I'm important now. I'm getting called out on the internet for one error in an otherwise immaculate article. I was like, you know what, whatever. I'm making money and you're not. Like,
that's the spirit.
Yeah, well, it was funny. So yeah.
My last question for Eric: what geekdom? I see all the stuff behind you. What's your favorite geekdom, and like, what do you collect at while you're at cons? Do you?
Oh boy,
or is this just stuff that's been sent to you?
No, it's you know, I'm kind of like a magpie. I go for things that are shiny, and it doesn't always necessarily be. I've gotten to the point where now the only thing that I collect, because it's the only thing I have space for anymore, is pins. So I mean, and I will go down the line. It's just like, you know, I'm at a convention. Oh, there's a Star Wars pin. There's a Don't Panic pin. There's a Bela Lugosi pin, and there's Mystery Science Theater. We'll go with these, you know, something like that.
Wow.
Because yeah, I like a lot of things, and I can get them this way and not take up more space that I don't have.
It's probably a good idea. I'm trying to figure out how to go about.
Yeah, eventually you get to the point where something has to be stored, and then, you know, what fun is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, that's for the best containment unit of all, your parents. So, you know.
My parents are dead, Drew. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm just like Batman, only not a billionaire or a crime
Or
fighter.
Well, that's a
superhero.
wrap, everybody. I'm gonna
So,
leave now.
I guess I'm
Yeah,
not
tell
like
you,
Batman at all, really.
I will show the favorite thing that I got now. I'll take it off the wall so it can be seen a little easier.
Oh man.
I added dialogue to this.
Right
Wow.
faster.
It's Chris Somney did
What?
did a charity thing one year, and I happened to get in time to get one of the sketches he had donated to
Nice.
charity. And I was so excited about it, and immediately I got emails from this one guy who wanted it,
Uh-huh.
and he wouldn't. It was 2 or 3 weeks of him. How about I trade you this? How about this? What do you want for?
Oh my
It's
god.
not for sale, man. I want it.
Why?
Just got the damn thing.
Wow.
But yeah, it was. I was excited to get it, and then it hangs for my writing computer.
That's
No.
outstanding.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
and well, since we're kind of coming near the end, I did want to say thank you, Eric. Justin had met you at C2E2 a little bit this year, and he had got the trade paperback signed of the Ghostbusters for me, and you know, you had said hi, and you know, they say yes, and I got it. I was like, well, I'm just gonna keep this somewhere nice and safe. You know, and I think our co-host Rich was just like, man, too bad you can't get anything virtually signed. I was like, don't tempt me. Don't tempt. I'm still hoping that you'll end up at New York Comic Con this year again. And then
I'll try. I don't know, but I'll try.
Well, if so, I'd be like, well, let's see. Where are those tickets? Who, you know, who's not going to be there Saturday? Let's go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So hopefully, so thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it, and hopefully get to see you in person. There won't be any mustache by then, but you know, yeah, I think you'll recognize.
Fair enough.
So, fair enough.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. And
Seriously,
you know,
thank
hopefully, hopefully what I said made sense.
It did. No, thank you.
Absolutely. And if you have any new books coming out, or you know, or
Oh yeah,
you have a new event or anything, please. I mean, we'd be more than glad to have you back on to talk about it. You know, I'd love for our Rich and Leo to also have a chance to meet you and maybe ask some of their questions, because I'm sure they have some. So.
Well, I will spoil this. I just turned it in today. The Saturday Morning Adventures Halloween one shot.
Oh nice.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm very excited.
So yeah. So that'll be fun to see what I can do with Ghosts without Busters.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully it's I have to wait a couple of weeks to hear what Nickelodeon thinks of it, but they did say I could use Creepy Eddie, so that was all right.
Okay. All right. Nice.
All righty. Well, I'll let you go, guys. Thank you very much again for having me.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much, man. Have a good one. We're ready to believe you always.
Oh man, what a good guy! What a
Seriously.
great guy.
Yeah, that was awesome. And again, guys, we did great. You know, we did Leo and Rich proud.
Yeah.
I did not keep either one of them in mind the entire time.
Look at that humble brag sip of water there. Just
you
like,
snooze, you lose, Leo and Rich.
Yeah,
How about them apples?
Yep, this mug is empty. No water there for you.
Yeah, I'm all
So-
out
I
of
actually,
coffee
I have
myself.
it's funny because there is a Ghostbusters comic that I plan on doing an episode of Comics Paradox on in like probably closer to Halloween, just you know, we get like ghosts and all that stuff.
Ooh, spooky.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm it's gonna be Ghostbusters Deviations.
Yeah,
Alternate reality Ghostbusters.
absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
so
Let me know. I got you.
that'll be fun. You know, I love that IDW for a little while was doing their version of What If.
Mhm.
They only had a few of them, but it was all titled Deviations.
I think it was 4.
Yeah, it was Ghostbusters,
Transformers, Teenage
X-
Mutant Ninja Turtles.
in X-Files. Was that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it was an intriguing concept, and I wish they had kept up with it a little bit more
Yeah. Well,
throughout the lines.
100%. But no, guys, thank you so much. I just want to say, like, thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate everything you brought to the table. You know, Jeremy with those questions, Brandon also with those questions and your energy.
And Brandon with more questions.
More questions and
And
more
Drew,
energy.
you with your questions.
Listen, Jeremy, I
That
mean,
was
listen,
fun.
I'm just so excited that we got to cover these and I got to introduce. Well, Brandon, you already read it, so you knew. But Jeremy, you know, honestly, I'm telling you, man, this is some of the best Ghostbuster comics I've read. I mean, I haven't read the real Ghostbuster stuff Marvel Now did back in the day, but I'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, from Ghostbusters to Ghostbusters International, Ghostbusters 101, I mean, the series morphed into a few different series by the
Yeah.
time it completed. But that combined with the crossovers that they did, like, you know, Get Real,
Mhm.
the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was great too, because with that crossover, it actually had ramifications for the series itself as it
Oh,
went
that's
Yep.
pretty
forward.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole the not just the plot device, but the actual device within the story that allowed them to, you know, traverse this multiverse. It actually becomes a piece of tech that they have.
Yeah, and
And
it's amazing, and it's so great, especially because, like Brandon said, everything is always grounded in reality. Like they explain, like Eric beautifully explains how their first battle with Gozer, and again, I know because I wrote an article about this, essentially created the multiverse, and it was one of those things that was like any great idea, it's so simple but yet it makes so much sense. And you're just like, the entire series was just a whole amount of, my God, how did nobody think of this first? And probably people did, but they just never put it to paper. And I was
Well,
just like,
yeah. Well, they might have even put it to paper, just at the time wasn't ready
ready.
for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
yeah,
And like I said, you know, I'm really hoping that, you know, again, I'm optimistic for where Afterlife is going to go, but I really hope that they do allow other stories because
I have a feeling that once they've firmly entrenched the world of Ghostbusters Afterlife into the zeitgeist. Like, we had the movie come out and it
Mhm.
was received very well.
Yeah.
Right.
And they want to really drive home, like, it wasn't just like a flash in the pan one and done type deal.
Mhm.
Once they have that foothold and they're able to crack the door all the way open, the floodgates will also raise, and you will likely see more stuff being tolerated slash explored. And
Mhm.
with that being the case, I mean, it would I think it would be foolish for Sony to not lean into the fact that they
Absolutely.
have a treasure trove of continued stories from what we know going to the first sequel,
Eh,
and then, you know, you can do whatever you want and have concurrent series
Yeah.
with what's going on.
And you know, and it's one of those things. Um, yeah, it's another one of those things like essentially because I know we're running a little long, so we'll probably wrap this up soon. I like I said, I love this franchise. I love, you know, the stories, the people involved. You know, honestly, this is in my mind one of the best movie franchises that was ever created. And, you know, I just love that it's still there. And, you know, especially speaking from experience, I love that the thing that I get to enjoy as a Ghostbuster myself. And I get to interact with other people and kind of continue that love. So, you know, and I'm, you know, I'm not going to get sentimental. Like, you know, in the future, when I have kids, I'm going to really enjoy showing them it and kind of being able to see it through their eyes again for the first time, which I'm sure Jeremy can understand, because I'm sure there are things that he loved that his
Oh,
kids.
it's fun to do that stuff. Let me tell
Yeah.
you, like, I may complain about Happy Feet, but they've had to watch some pretty boring crap because of me, I'm sure.
Yeah, but in the end, you know what? The Ghostbusters live on because, in the words of the late great Egon Spengler, new people die every day, right? So there's always going to be a cause. So with that note, did you guys want to rate everything, and then we'll do the credits and call it a day?
Sure.
Okay. I'll go last since my opinion is the most biased. So, so I don't know, Jeremy, do you want to go first?
Sure. I have to say this was a great introduction to the comics of Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
I was confused at first by the Gray Ghostbusters. I did not know of all the afterlife and all that stuff had been gone into comics and the original comics. I thought the real Ghostbusters were from the movies and all that stuff. I thought it was all intertwined, but I was educated differently. It was great. Especially being able to read it all with everybody's voices going. Yeah, I had so much fun with that. I want to read more because of it. I'd say my least favorite probably was the Martians, not because it wasn't fun or anything. It was just so short.
Right.
As I was saying to him, Eric, in the interview, I wanted more from that story and from the Ghostbusters, Meet the Ghostbusters one.
Mm-hmm.
That was, those two were really good. I felt more like the Transformers one was more fleshed out by and also leaving you with a cliffhanger that questions that you had might still be answered later, I guess.
So do you want to rate them individually by ghost straps, or?
I will say, let's see. We'll put them all around. We'll put the first two at 4.4 and a quarter ghost straps, and then the last one I'll probably go 4 3/4. If another series comes out, I want to read it. So,
well, buddy, the second that news gets announced, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
So, all right, excellent. Brandon, what do you got?
I'll keep mine short and sweet. Get real. And this is a scale of 5, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Get real. I'll give a 4.5. The Transformers, I'll give a 4.
Okay.
And Mars Attacks, probably like a 3.75. And that's not because of the quality of the story itself or the writing. It's just one, Mars Attacks is not a property that I really care much about.
Right.
But secondly, sometimes there is such a thing as breathing room, and brevity is not always the key to driving a story home. So whenever you pick up a comic book story and you blink and you feel like you just like missed something, that's probably a good indicator that the people making it were not given the breath they needed to tell the entirety of the story they had to. But yeah, that's where I stand with those. And I mean, but regardless, they're all still great Ghostbusters stories.
Yeah.
And if you read any of them and you have what happened with Jeremy, insofar as, oh, well, now I want more.
Right.
Then mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Agreed. I totally agree. And as for me, as I'm very biased, I will give Mars Attacks a 4. Probably 4. Actually, no, a 4.5. Because like Brandon said, I myself never really cared too much about Mars Attacks, but it's still a great story, especially any chance to revisit the real Ghostbusters. The Get Real, I loved it. I'm a huge fan, so that will be a 5 for me, just because I loved all the references. I caught everything. Yeah, I even knew the episode that they referenced, the Janine Melnitz's Ghostbuster. So, and then Transformers, I'm going to go with Jeremy Brandon. Again, pretty fucking immaculate. I'm also going to give it a 5. It shouldn't work, but the way Dan and Eric do it, it's beautiful. And I wanted more. And honestly, I was hoping for, I don't know, some sort of spectral Omnicron. That was my thing.
I honestly thought there was going to be something along those lines when I first read it.
Yeah, but I'm not going to lie. One of my favorite Ghostbusters articles was writing about Gozer destroying Cybertron for Screen Rant. Just the fact that I was telling people that this happened and rereading it and saving those images and just laughing was one of the best that I got to write, and I was just so happy. And again, it shouldn't work, but all of it, including the fact that it was fucking Starscream, is just perfect.
Starscream sucks.
It just made sense.
And even his animosity against Peter was just hilarious, right down to the end where he's just trying to get revenge. It was just so great, and that's the thing I love about Ghostbusters comic. They're just so much fun, and honestly, let's just let the good times keep going. Yeah. So honestly, if you guys liked anything you heard here, please check out. I'm sure they're in a ton of omnibuses and paper trade paperbacks. IDW's Ghostbuster run. You cannot. I really feel that I would be hard pressed to find you be disappointed. So check it out.
And if you are an individual who does make use of Comixology, there are a number of Ghostbusters books that are available if you are an unlimited member that you can borrow for free. With Comixology Unlimited, you can borrow up to like 50 books or something like that. And I can't recommend that enough. I know. I think right off the bat, I can say like Ghostbusters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is one of them.
Yep, totally is.
So yeah, if wherever you can find them and get them in a legitimate manner, please, because our good buddy Erik Burnham, we're allowed to say that now. Our good buddy Erik Burnham, guys like that, guys and gals like him, that's how they make their living is by working on these types of projects and
talk about a group of people that need a union, comic writers and the such. It's not as glamorous as we'd like to all believe it. So please pay for your books.
Yeah.
Yes, please, and thank you. I mean, I cannot stress that enough. Just pay for your comics. Pay for your comics and movies, everybody. Jesus.
Exactly.
Come on.
Support your local stores, everybody.
And that's how you vote. I can't stress that enough. That your money is your vote. And when you pay the money, you are showing the people that make commerce of these works of art what it is that people want to see. And if you're not ponying up the dough to show them that you want to see it, then you're just going to get the fucking 17th volume of Venom. And, we don't need that. We don't.
So to TLDR, what Brandon just said for everybody, that's the equivalent of, yes, have some. So have some more. Thank you. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We're Splash Pages. We're here every Tuesday. We do news. We do interviews. We talk about books. We make fun of each other. Why? Because we like each other, usually.
Those people do nothing but talk shit about you behind your back. We do it in front of your face. Why? We're your friends.
Thank you. And that lovely Out Cold reference is brought to you by the powerful Brandon, who's on more shows than you can realize, but is still extremely humble.
I try.
He tries. And then we have Jar Jar Jeremy on the bottom there. He buys and sells comics. He works on
I
podcasts.
usually just buy them these days.
Yeah. He usually buys, occasionally used to sell. He also used to do other podcasts, but he's working on that too. Yeah, he does things, and he's trying to make sure all of his attic is wallpapered with comic books.
Actually, they're all coming down.
There you go. All coming down. See, because y'all didn't believe.
Yeah, or this side I started working on this week. I'm starting to take them down. In another week, they'll fall down. So
yeah, that's why. Let that be a lesson to you, kids. It's different hanging stuff up in an attic in the winter because when it gets to be spring and summer, that heat and humidity is a real bitch.
Agreed.
Yeah, it sure is. And no matter what you use, like paper does not like warmth and to change. And like, so
I was going to use a nail gun, but then I realized that might ruin the comics.
But if you like what you saw, Brandon is on Legend of the Dork Knight. He also does the comic Paradox, where he talks about some really cool stuff. But really,
what ifs
really
and
cool.
Elseworlds, kids? It's all the rage.
Indeed, in 1990, all the rage. But seriously, guys, we're all part of the Dork Network. We've literally got a multiverse of content. There's probably something for everybody. So you know, stop being a jerk and subscribe. And me, I'm Drew Mollo. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, which is Ghostbuster Man 1984, as Rich would harmlessly plug at the end, so I'll do it for him. I'm on Screen Rant. I do things. I'm places. And I'm also occasionally bothering these guys about details and research to where I have to deal with Brandon's one-word answers because he's monosyllabic when he gets mad at me. Or Jeremy will just
monosyllabic when I'm mad at you. I'm monosyllabic when I'm doing my fucking job during the day. Like I'm working, and you're like, and I'm like, okay, cool. You know, like literally, legitimately, I'm like, okay. And then I gotta go back to. I have 3 fucking screens in front of me all day long, and then I'm like, how? What the hell is this? Okay, it's Drew, and he gives me like a paragraph. I'm like, all right, that's awesome. So I write, okay, and then I put my phone down. Like I read it. Okay. Like,
I know. It's all good. I'm busting a chops.
I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you or anything.
I know.
Like, that's not the case.
Oh,
I
no,
barely
no,
have time for myself at that point.
Brandon,
Like,
I think I know you well enough to know that if you want nothing to do with me, it would be abundantly clear on the loudest billboard.
I would like to think so. I think Brandon's mad at me. Why? He told me to go fuck myself.
Yeah,
he's mad at me. Oh yeah, that'd do it.
It sounds about right.
Exactly. Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Next week we'll probably have another great show, and just
no guests next week.
Yeah, just a book and news and
we might actually get to look at the book next week.
Not just a book and news. It's a book and news and you guys. And I'll be not here. I'll be doing something else probably. Like sleeping. I don't know.
Well, thank you to Brandon for jumping in. Yes. And Jeremy, always good seeing you. And me, I'm gonna go to sleep. So
all right.
That's the longest outro ever.
You're welcome. That's why I don't do them.
Thanks everybody. Have a fantastic evening.